Now that the hard part is over, let's do another projected texture to get us our porch and start moving some of this stuff down. So I would say that the slab itself should be a separate piece from the actual ground it's sitting on. So let's go ahead and trace using this material below the slab. And there's a slight adjustment to the homework. And you might have I think it's been adjusted on yours, but just in case. The site outside of the house is going to be minus 14 inches, not minus 3 feet. I'm not quite sure what it says on the sheet you guys got last week. So let's just make sure that we're only going down 2 steps. So we're going to go down 1, 2 here, and that's going to be negative 14. So each rise will be 7 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from this outside corner, and I'm just going to trace around this entire house. But I'm going to use, when I get to this part, I'm going to use the material below as a guide. So I'm starting from the outside corner, and I'm just drawing using my line tool, and I'm going to miss this step because that's going to be a separate piece. I'm going to go all the way to the edge of this guy and just click all the way around. I'm not worried that much about how precise I am on this. Again, this isn't a real building from scratch. This is a building that already exists. And I'm going to this other outer corner, and here I've got the bottom step and then the step just above that, which is basically the top of the slab. So I'm going to use that line there as my reference. And as I go around until I get back to where I began, I'm now going to double click on this and make it a group. And now I can take my slab, which will now represent from here on out the actual ground, and I can move this down 14 inches. Enter. This now needs, because this is my new floor, this needs some dimension, so I'm going to push-pull that, and I'm just going to push-pull it to the slab. Now, since this is a projected texture down below, I'm going to reference this using my eyedropper and paint it on top of that slab so that it stays right on top where it belongs. Let's see if it moves when I click. It did. So same thing happened that I was worried about happening the first time around, and that is that it moved when I did the stairs. So I'm going to explode that and then group it again. All right. Now I just need to draw a little rectangle here for this step. Double click on that, group it, double click to open it, and I'm just going to push-pull till I match to that midpoint. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side, only here it needs to be a little bit more complex. I need to actually draw a line all the way around it. So from every point until I get back to the inside, double click on that, group it, double click to open that up, push-pull it till I get to that point, and close it. Let's go ahead and get rid of that material palette. We don't need that. Okay? So now what you have is you have your entire house sitting on top of the slab like it belongs. But I've noticed something as I look inside this, and that is that this requires a few steps up. So it looks like what's happening is this garage is actually sitting lower in space than the rest of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carve away at this slab here, and I'm going to start from, let's go ahead and hide the outer wall so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to hide this wall, and I'm going to hide this wall. So I'm going to push-pull this area down, but first things first, I need to use my guides to start carving away at this. And I'm just going to go to the inside wall for now. So I'm using this inside wall as a guide. And then I pull this all the way around, and I'm going to hold shift down until I get to this point here. Click and click again. Now I can push-pull this face away, and it'll disappear. Bring my garage walls back by unhiding, and this wall now needs to be extended. So I need to push this wall down, and I need to do the same thing here. But what happens if I push it down is it's going to overlap with this slab that I've created. So I'm going to get underneath this, and I'm going to make a line from this point to that point, and I'm going to push-pull Now I'm going to push pull just that piece down like that. And click to close. If I was making this model from scratch and I was going to be really, really fancy, I would probably ultimately push the slab all the way on the inside and have the walls come down around the outside so I didn't see that line there. But I'm not that worried about it for this model, so I'm not gonna kill myself. Last but not least, I need to create a little step right here using my rectangle. Double click on that to make it a group and push pull that up 7 inches. So I've got a little step to get up into that garage door. Okay, so now what we have is we have our slab and we have our stairs in place. One other thing I might want to do, I noticed that I've got a few little areas where I've got some soffits, and I'm not going to worry about this oval soffit just yet, but I might want to put these soffits in place. And I'm just going to say that the soffits are, let's go 14 inches deep. So I'm going to use my guides. I'm going to snap from this point to that wall, and if I click in, I remember this being about 12 inches, so my 12 inches gets me right on that line. I'm going to create a new rectangle and double click, make it a group, double click and push it up, double click to open it up and then push pull it 14 up into space and click to close and then just drag that up into space where it needs to be. I've got the same thing happening on this opposite side, so I can just use this same soffit by copying it and pulling it over like that. And then I can do the same thing here. I'm just going to do a double click to extend that guideline all the way across, move this out 12 inches, go with my rectangle, click from point to point, double click to make that a group, and double click to open it up, make it 14 inches, double click to close, and move that up into place. Lastly, I see that I've got a few soffits in some of these rooms that wrap the whole room. So in this case, let's use our guide here to see how far out it goes. So I'm clicking out here, and it looks like it's just about 12 again. So I'm just using that guide as a reference. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a rectangle, and I'm going to go from point to point, double click on that to select it, and then group it, and then open it up, offset using my offset command, 12 inches, enter, and delete that center point, or that center face. So I'm going to hit D for delete. Now I'm going to push pull this up 14 inches and click to close. Now I'm going to click and move this up in space, and I'll do the same thing out here, and I can see that it's the same. So I'm going to do another rectangle. Notice all of these elements are individual pieces, so I have a lot of ability to edit here. I'm going to double click on this to select it, G to group it, double click again with my select tool to open it up, O to offset and bring that in 12 inches by typing in 12. Now I'm going to double click and I'm just going to click on that one face and delete it, and then push pull this up 14 inches and close, and then bring this up into place. So at this point we now have the majority of our major soffits and the porch and the stairs in place. So if you're at this point now, you're in really, really good shape. We're going to move on, and we're going to do, I'm going to introduce you to a couple new tools, and we're going to start making this house look like a real house.